Yo, we got Joe Ratty here, representing LSU Women's Basketball with an unbelievable weekend here to start the tournament. Congrats on the Sweet 16, I guess, birth, if you will. Leave for that soon. But first, let's talk about the weekend. There's two big victories.
Yeah.
Talk about the weekend, the PMAC, the turnout you guys got, and obviously the performance that you got from the girls.
Well, this is all new to me. I mean, I've never been to a Sweet 16. I'd only won one tournament game up until this year, but we made it a goal as a staff at the beginning of the year that we wanted to win one more game in the tournament than we did last year, and we've reached that. But going back to the atmosphere, 17 games at home this season, and each game you could go and nitpick and say, oh, well, it was a cold, rainy night. It was too hot. It was a weeknight late game. But undefeated at home, 17-0 this year, and credit a lot of that to our student section. It started with the students from really the first week of the season, even some of those non-conference games that we were blowing teams out by 30, 40 points. And, winning takes care of a lot, but there were a lot of games at home this season. You look at the Georgia game, you look at the Arkansas game, some of those games in conference that were pretty close and were rough patches in our schedule. We probably don't win some of those games without our students and without our fans as a whole. And I think there's something to be said about continuing to fill the PMAC regardless of what else is going on in the community. We dodged a big bullet with St. Patrick's Day being on Saturday and us not having to play on Saturday, which was a little bit of a conflict last year. I thought Friday, for it being an afternoon game.
It's news to Jared.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think Friday against Hawaii, that was kind of a knock the rust off type of game. You don't ever want to approach a game like that, but we hadn't played in almost 2 weeks, and you can try and simulate as many game-like situations in practice. You can try and scrimmage. You can try and do all that stuff,
but it ain't a game.
It's not like rolling it out.
It ain't a game.
So fortunately, we were able to clean up a few things against Hawaii, and then we had a little bit of a come to Jesus, so to speak, on Saturday in the film room, because there was a lot of things we did wrong, and a lot of things that once you play on a Friday and you have such a quick turnaround, it's not like you can spend all day on the court on Saturday. So in that short amount of time, you've got to be able to make little adjustments. And so I think our attention to detail and I think our focus slipped a little bit against Hawaii. There were a few things that we could have done better. They hit probably a few more threes than we would have liked them to. But we took care of business against Hawaii on Friday. It seems like the city of Baton Rouge had a great time on Saturday. I've seen beads from Perkins to River Road to Burbank
to the PMAC,
to the casino.
Yeah, I mean all over the place. So it sounds like Saturday was awesome, which hopefully I never, while I'm living in Baton Rouge, while I'm living in Baton Rouge, hopefully I never have to take part in St. Patrick's Day, because that would mean we're playing. And I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Lloyd literally took offense to that. He was like, I don't think he knew where you were going with that.
But Lloyd,
you should be working.
But if I was at St. Patrick's Day, that would mean that our season's over, and that's not okay. First week of March, because we're trying to build a program and set a standard here, and it's a second and third weekend type of program.
You talk about that. Obviously, you had a huge night from
what?
The Bayou Barbie.
Oh,
Angel
Reese.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to finish my sentence for me. I
don't know why you would assume that he was going to figure that out.
She had 26, 24, and 6 blocks. I think that the most rebounds ever since Sylvia Fowles.
Yeah. But let's talk about her game against Hawaii. 35. What is it? 34 and 25? 34, 24, something.
That's why I figured you were going to finish it, because she's been balling in this tournament. And then my next question was going to be, who else do you expect to step up? Because if you're going to in my mind, if you're going to win the whole thing, I might have a little future on it. I am beating you in the bracket in the men's side, but
slip-ups there.
A couple slip-ups. But if you need somebody else, who do you think that second or third player is going to be? Because you can't expect Angel Reese to do that every night, even though she has been.
I think the first 2 games, Angel, she's proven a lot of the doubters. I think going into this tournament, she had a big chip on her shoulder because the narrative behind our team was Angel Reese doesn't show up for big games. You look at our 2 big games, South Carolina, she was probably her worst
2
game.
losses.
Yeah, worst game of the season. Then Tennessee, she still had 22 or 24 and 10, but she didn't have a rebound the last 13 minutes, 52 seconds of the game, which is so unlike Angel Reese. And it's not like she wasn't playing. I mean, she was in the game the whole end of the third and the whole fourth quarter. And so when she got back from the SEC tournament, she got with our strength coach, Thomas, and made a concerted effort to get in a little bit better shape, hit the weight room. Not like you can change overnight, but to find that next gear, it's crazy what 30, 45 extra minutes of conditioning and some weights can do for you. And in that 2 weeks that we had off between games, Angel was getting extra work in. She's not the only one. You look at Flage. Flage, the narrative had been, is the freshman ready for the big stage? And she's continued to prove all the doubters wrong this year. I think she sparked our defense against Hawaii. We could not have shot it any worse against Hawaii. I think we were 1 of 14 or 1 of 15 from 3. And it kind of started like that against Michigan. We started the game, I think, 0 of 8 or 0 of 9 from 3 in the first quarter. And the main goal against Michigan was get the ball inside because there was really no one that could guard Angel. And, yeah, Angel had all those rebounds, a lot of them offensive, cleaning up her own misses. But it was a physical game. Maybe the refs missed a few foul calls. Luckily, this isn't the NBA, and I don't get fined for talking about refs. But, I mean, it was a legitimate bloodbath. Walking through the handshake line after the game last night, every single Michigan player that played in that game had some sort of blood, whether it was a cut on their neck, a cut on their arm, a bloody nose, an eyebrow. Like, I mean, there's blood everywhere. And our girls.
No. Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but like that's where I was going. So like Lloyd said, like that's where his mindset is, right? My mindset is if we're going to basically slay the dragon, right? Obviously, you got to get there. Yeah. You got to take care of each step before you get there. But my mind plays back to that game that happened earlier in the year, and what I saw from them was a team that was so damn physical, right? Yeah. And I thought if you guys could not so much make shots, obviously you could beat a lot of teams if you can hit shots, but you don't really control that night in and night out, right?
Yeah.
If you guys could start playing some very, very, very inspired and super physical defense, that's the easiest route to getting to beating a team like that.
Right.
Great performance with game 1, but an even better performance defensively with game 2. Mm-hmm. What's been the emphasis on getting y'all to playing like that and doing the things you just described a little bit?
I think for Sunday, the biggest message was toughness. Lack of toughness on Friday, and really lack of toughness throughout really the end of February and into March had kind of been our Achilles heel. And it's one thing that Coach Mulkey preached. It's one thing that Bob preached. We got to be tough. And we look back at Ohio State from last year. They came in and completely manhandled us. Big Ten team, won their league, somehow was a 6th seed. And, yeah, we were missing Alexis Morris. Yeah, Faustine was banged up a little bit. But you can't make excuses at this time in the year. So going into
March.
It's March. No one cares. No one cares what's wrong with your team.
Survive in advance. Huh?
Exactly. And so the emphasis was toughness. We knew that we were going to be able to execute against Michigan, but they had more size at every position, really, except for Angel. They bigger from a physical standpoint, stronger, and on film, because obviously we hadn't played Michigan before. They looked more aggressive than any team that we faced in a long time, since probably South Carolina. And so the fact that we were able to not only match their toughness, but in a sense, completely run them out of the gym
Oh,
where
yeah.
they
That
were
was a wood chip.
they had no shot.
I mean, they were tapping out.
He was out back
in the fourth quarter. It was over, and you love to see that we were able to empty the bench, and no better, more fitting way to end our season at the PMAC and Emily Ward's senior year at the PMAC with her getting the last rebound and getting to dribble the clock out. I mean, the fans, they didn't want to leave. But
begging her to make a three.
Oh, it was. I mean, she had her chance against Hawaii. She had her chance, but no shots were falling against Hawaii. But I think it's just a testament to the girls right now and where they are mentally, not wanting this thing to end. Obviously, April 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever that championship date is the final day you can play. But I'm really excited for this week because after tonight, there's only 16 teams left. And that's one thing that people started to say on Saturday after we beat Hawaii on Friday. Guys, we're one of 32 teams that's still at a shoot-around right now. We're one of 32 teams that still get to do this. And that sounds good and all, but it's really not that motivating. Now when you look at it and you see that there's 16 teams left and that bracket quadrant gets a little bit smaller, that's when you really start to elevate your game and really start to intensify your focus. And I'm excited to see how practice goes tomorrow because we didn't have a great practice on Saturday, and our shoot-around Sunday was not great at all. But, we were able to take care of business last night, and the scene in the locker room, I'm sure y'all have seen it on social media. Like I said, this is my first time to ever advance to a Sweet 16 to get to that second weekend. And so I probably look crazy celebrating in the locker room, crowd surfing. I was crowd surfing, and a lot of people say act like you've been there before, but one thing we haven't, and that's one thing Coach Mulkey told Coach G and Shantae and myself because we'd never been to a Sweet 16. Coach G had never been to an NCAA tournament until he got to LSU. So
he
thought about crowd surfing. He thought about it.
Yeah,
he came up.
I'm not a huge fan. I've never been a huge fan of the really act like you've been there before statement.
Okay.
Like I even think about it like on the baseball side of it, and we're sitting here saying like
at least make it gritty good.
it doesn't matter what it does. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
I just think of it. I'm like, man, like even somebody like Aaron Judge, like the guy had 600 at bats.
Yeah,
and he hit 60 homers. Right, that's less than 10% of his at bats he's hitting homers in, and you just want him to touch the plate and just jog back. Like, do something. It's just hard. Like it's fucking hard to do.
I'm a Sully.
Like if you do something you haven't done before, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not saying it has to be the end of the world.
Angel hit the backwards gritty last night.
Oh yeah, I mean, and then we give up a 3 on the other end, but who cares? We're up 20, 22, 24. We're not going to do that in a one possession game, but gritty dude's coming to practice tomorrow. He saw it, he caught on to it, so he'll be at practice tomorrow.
Big advocate of celebrate with your team,
and that's the one thing I told the girls as they were starting to walk off the court last night. I said, especially Emily, LaDeja, Alexis, and our seniors, I was like, and Jasmine, I was like, y'all enjoy this. Make a victory lap or 2 or 3 because it's the last time that you're going to be in this environment on your home court. There's nothing like it.
Give a little neck chant.
There were a few neck chants last night.
The girls did one with us after.
Oh yeah, and we played neck in the locker room.
There you go.
So I told it.
Kept gets the water bottle.
It was awesome.
Douse.
I told the girls. So in the hallway they had the big bracket up where they give you the name and you slap it on the board. You're advancing. I told all the girls, I was like, y'all go get water bottles, and this needs to be an absolute just water.
Shower.
Like y'all need to soak Kim Mulkey, and they're like, all right. So they go in there, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to get me a bottle of water too. I was like, I've never been a part of this one. I've been in 1 or 2 like where we've dunked water on someone who hit a game winner. But I was like, yeah, I'm about to be a part of it. So I got G a bottle of water. I got myself a bottle of water, and Coach came in and.
Be careful.
Got flooded.
Coach ain't in flats now. Be careful.
Oh yeah,
Still an athlete.
She was loving it, and that's one thing she said last night. Once the celebration calmed down a little bit, she said we need to enjoy this one tonight and get back to the film room tomorrow, which is today, and we've started watching stuff on Utah.
The Mormons
getting the scouting report ready, but. It's just a fun time right now with LSU athletics as a whole. I mean, it's real special to see what's going on in Baton Rouge.
And how much do you take away from, you talk about the physicality, whether it be, obviously South Carolina seems like they're obviously on two different sides of the bracket, LSU and South Carolina. How much do you take away from y'all's ability to be physical and go against a bigger team? That was the biggest trope against South Carolina, is they don't match up physically. Like, y'all didn't match up the way that you were supposed to because of height-wise. And it seems like you showed a little bit of more tenacity on that end of the in that end of the bracket or that end of the tournament, wherever it's like, okay, if this is what we have to do, we're going to show what we can do and match up a little bit better.
Yeah, I think you don't want to say it's an outlier because, yes, we've learned a lot from that South Carolina game. But from this point on, we'll be on neutral court. We're not playing in front of someone's 18,000 fans. We're not playing in front of a DJ who doesn't stop playing music the whole game. We're not playing with freshmen who have never been in an environment like that before. That was, to me, an outlier. Put us on a neutral court, and that game's a lot closer. And I think we learned a lot from it, though. If we want to get to where we want to go, which is win championships, whether that's conference championships, conference tournament championships, or national championships, we've got to be tougher. We've got to be more physical. And you can't teach that overnight to these freshmen. They've got to kind of get manhandled a little bit, so to speak, to learn those lessons. And I think the way that they've been able to constructively criticize themselves and learn from it and take feedback from coaches, that's been the most special thing to me, because a lot of these kids just like to ball up and go into a hole and just kind of shy away from all of it. But that's one thing that Coach Mulkey's not going to let you do. She's going to coach you until she can't coach you anymore. And she's done a great job with this group. And you don't want to look too far ahead, but after watching Utah, a few games on them, I'm going to keep watching. Coach Starkey's probably already watched about 15 games on them. We match up well with them, and it's a team that if we bring that physicality on Friday afternoon, I think we're either playing at 2:30 or 5. They haven't announced yet. We'll know after the two games tonight. But if we bring that physicality that we brought against Michigan and that toughness,
well, I think there's a chance against anyone if you bring that kind of physicality. So you got a 2 seed against a 3 seed Friday afternoon in Greenville, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. What challenges have you seen or that you know does this Utah team present to y'all?
They push the ball. They like to run. This will be, from a transition defense standpoint for us, our biggest test of the year. Arkansas was a team that we were really worried about, where they've got 5 kids that can all really shoot it. Utah shoots a lot of threes, but they also shoot a lot of layups. And they're 2 post players, Pilly and Pill or Pilly, I don't know how to say her last name, in particular. She's started the tournament off strong. She was the player of the year in the conference. I think she was freshman of the year in the conference either last year. Yeah, I think last year. So she's a dominant force for them. But she hasn't seen a big like Angel Reese. She hasn't seen a shot blocker and a shot alterer like LaDasia Williams. I mean, LaDasia last night, that's one thing that Coach Starkey said in the film room on Saturday when we were watching Michigan film. He said, LaDasia, this is a game that you need to have double-digit rebounds. And what does she do? A senior comes out and has a double-double last night. And that's the type of maturity that you want to have in leadership, because LaDasia is probably the quietest person on the team outside of Samaya. Samaya is a freshman. But LaDasia is the type that shows up to work, takes care of business every day, and you don't have any problems with her. But there was that little extra bit of flair to her game last night that showed I ain't ready to go home yet. And I think that's real special to see, and we're going to need that. I think one thing that we can do against Utah is we can run on them. They're not a great transition defensive team. So I think we all saw last night that we are so much better when we push the ball. We get open looks and open running lanes. We can get to the paint, kick out, and hit shooters. We have the ability to offensive rebound. And for the first time in a while, just looking at Utah's starting lineup, we're going to have a little bit more experience advantage than they do. We've got an older team, a little bit older team. They've got a lot of sophomores on their team, but they're good. I mean, they've won a lot of games.
Higher seed.
Questionably.
But that was what I was going to get to when you said a 2 versus a 3 seed. we knew all along from selections. When the bracketology came out, whether you're the last 2 seed or the first 3 seed, if you want to get to where you want to go, you've got to beat that 2 seed has to beat the 3 or vice versa. And we're trying to go to the same place. And after Friday, there's only going to be one team standing between us.
I would imagine, too, if you go with all the 2s and all of the 3s, there might be maybe one of the 3s who really, if they're truthful about it, could look at it and say, yeah, we don't deserve a 2. All of the 3s think they deserve a 2.
Right.
And they should.
Right.
So, like, you're looking at teams that have probably had, on paper, very, very, very comparable seasons, right?
100%.
So that these 2, a 3 seed, like you said, and a 2 seed, there isn't, outside of who gets to play home and who gets to play here, it doesn't really make much of a difference when it comes down to it.
Right. And we saw yesterday that the SEC's kind of been disrespected a little bit in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alabama goes up huge against Baylor and ended up losing that one, but looked great for 95% of the game. Tennessee is manhandling their way to the Sweet 16. They were up 20-plus against Toledo when I was driving over here. Ole Miss goes to Stanford, beats Stanford on their home court last night. We're playing well. Mississippi State wins a play-in game, upsets a 6 seed, and took Notre Dame down to the wire. So people need to put a little bit more respect on the SEC. South Carolina's obviously doing what they're doing. But we've got a tough conference, and I think the reason that you're going to see some of these SEC teams in the Sweet 16 and advance even further is because of the test night in and night out that we had during conference play.
So you just teed up the next thing I was going to say. I think there's been a good bit of overshadowing simply because of the perceived light schedule, simply because of the perceived didn't show up in 2 games.
Yeah.
But we're seeing stuff in purple and gold that has not been seen since Sylvia Fowles when you're talking about Angel Reese. Can you talk about, did she expect to see things like this out of herself, or do you think she surprised herself a little bit by what she's done so far to date?
I think she's surprised herself, and she's surprised a lot of people. We knew when we got Angel out of the portal last year how good she was. We watched a lot of film on her at Maryland, but what we didn't realize is how much of a rebirth this was to her love for basketball and being able to find herself as a person and refine that love for the game. And you can have a kid go score 30, 40 a night and just not like basketball at all, and it's just miserable on them. Yeah. I mean, they throw around mental health, and it's a real thing. I mean, as a baseball player, I mean, how the game messes with your head. It's the same in basketball. It's the same in football. And Angel is in such a good place right now from a mental standpoint. And the thing about it is, yeah, she's going out and getting 20 and 20, 25 rebounds. But at the end of the day, she just wants to win. And yeah, if that's what it takes for us to win, she's going to go do it. I thought it showed a lot about her maturity last night when she got popped in the mouth on the first defensive possession of the game.
Little Kramer Robertson lip action.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly like that. Yeah. And she went. I don't know what they ended up doing to it, but she came out looking crazy. But
she ended up throwing it out. She missed a rebound or something, and she was like, "Yeah, fuck this," and threw it on the ground.
Exactly. But to know that Angel is doing what Sylvia was doing when she was in college, and what some of the other great rebounders and scorers in the SEC were doing, it's fun to see, and it's even more exciting to see the fans kind of relive this, because a lot of our fan base, they were here for the Sylvia and Simone days, and they've kind of had a quiet decade and a half, so to speak. So it's real exciting to see what Angel's doing, and Alexis, we're still waiting on. I mean, we haven't really needed her to have a huge night, but last night I think her ability to find people who were open, push the ball up the floor. Alexis guarded so well last night, and that you don't see that on a stat sheet. You don't see how good her defense was last night. But then you look at our role players like Kateri Poole. We moved her to the starting lineup because she played in the Big Ten, and we needed her from a toughness and physicality standpoint. And on the flip side of that, you look at someone like Jasmine Carson, who started every game this season. that could really mess with someone's head when you get to the playoffs and say, hey, you're not starting. Well, what does she do? Come in and hit 3 threes back to back to back, and that was a spark that we
11-0 run.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's what got the crowd going. Yeah, the defensive stops were great. Defense isn't sexy. No one really cares about defense. Right. They want to see showtime. They want to see threes going in. They want to see fast break layups. But how does all that start? On the defensive end. Yeah. And I think that's what really got us going. KP in the starting lineup from the first possession, the shot clock violation, the crowd was into it. I mean, I say it every time that I come on. I feel like the last game was the loudest it's been. And last night, from the first possession, I thought the roof was going to come off. And you look up middle of the second quarter and you've built a big lead. And then we get to the third quarter and they start on a 9-0 run. And you're like, oh, my God, is this really going to happen? This has been us all year. We haven't been able to separate. We call a timeout. Coach demands to get the ball inside and start getting stops on defense. And we go on a big run, and we end up winning the third quarter. And that's one thing we really preach is let's try and win every quarter. We break it down into 4 segments: first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And you're down 9-0 in the third quarter, and you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? And then you look up, and you get a couple kills. You hit a couple shots, and next thing you know, you win the quarter by 1.
It's about to pop off again.
Yeah, exactly. You get the crowd into it. They start swag surfing. Then fourth quarter, it was just a cherry on top to be able to see us. Coach, there was one inbounds play that we drew up. I'm not going to say which one it was, but the fist pump that she let out when we scored on the inbounds play. And
I think I know which one it was.
I hope they don't have our film with that.
Oh, we've got so many. But G looks at me because G wanted to run something different. And G looks at me. Or no. This was a play that we ran out of a half court set. Sorry. And
never mind.
G was yelling at her to run something different. She's like, no, let's run this. We end up scoring on it, and G looks at me and goes, well, that's why she's walking up and down the sideline, and I'm sitting right here. So it was fun. I can't imagine any game the rest of the season is going to be a blowout like last night was. Obviously, we didn't expect that. But when we play like we did last night, and we match or elevate our toughness and intensity on the defensive end,
play with tenacity.
We could keep this thing going for a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
You mentioned Alexis, and obviously we haven't really needed her to score a lot. But how do you get her going when you have these big matchups, the Sweet 16, and possibly moving forward?
I think last night and really against Hawaii too, Alexis, she's not shying away from anything because her defense has kept us in a lot of these games. But you draw up a couple plays for her. The Hawaii game, she hit a couple big shots. You look last night against Michigan, we ran 2 plays for her. She scored on them. Ran an inbounds play for her. She scored on it. It's like Alexis knows how to flip that switch. And I think in the Hawaii game, she settled a little bit for some threes. And whether you like it or not, Lex is the type that if that mid-range is going, that's what opens up her outside shot. Mm-hmm. South Carolina was a little different. She hit some outside shots to start the game, but Alexis mid-range is automatic. And she'll be ready for this weekend. I mean, as the lights get brighter and brighter, Alexis...
She loves it.
Oh, she loves it. Mm-hmm. She loves nothing more than the lights. So it's going to be a fun weekend in Greenville.
Hopefully they fix the roof.
Yeah. Well, the weather's supposed to be nice there this weekend. I don't know if we're going to get much rain, knock on wood. So...
when you get kids to be able to display a very, very high level of maturity, it's got to be like a rewarding feeling as a coaching staff. When you get someone like Jasmine Carson, who's asked to no longer start in this game and sit on the bench, but then still come in and make a very contributable effort to how she played. How good does that feel as a coaching staff to know you have that kind of maturity inside your locker room?
Well, Jazz is the type of kid who has the shooter's mindset. Jazz has been very, very cold the past few weeks. I mean, you look at her conference games, she shot the ball extremely well against Alabama. She shot the ball extremely well against Florida. She had 7 threes against Florida, and she shot the ball extremely well against Vandy. Since then, she's been struggling. She didn't score in the SEC tournament. She struggled to find the rim against Hawaii. So I think as a shooter, which was one of the few things I did very well playing basketball. When you see that first one go in after you've missed a bunch, it feels like you're throwing a rock into the ocean. The next one should go up. And Jazz hit 2 more after that first one, and then the fourth one she shot was a heat check. But, when you're feeling it, like, we're fine with a shot like that. So I think Jazz being a senior and having played in a lot of games, she understood what we were doing. It was nothing against her.
Yeah.
Jazz is not as physical as KP, and LaDeja's not as physical as Angel. Like, you take different pieces because that's part of this piece it together. Like, the puzzle piece we needed to beat Michigan was put KP in the starting lineup for a little bit more toughness. And then you add that other puzzle piece, outside shooting. All right, Jazz, you go in, time to shine. And she did.
Championship teams, when you get to the tournament, whatever the tournament is, they all understand it's all hands on deck at this point.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's no longer we're going through the schedule, you get your numbers, blah, 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 blah. Even though that's not really what it is, it is all cards out the window, all bets are out the window. This is the only game that really matters,
Yep.
and we're going to play it that way. And you need to understand when your number is called on, we need you to perform. When and where that will be, no one knows. We don't know. But when it is called, that's when you get – and for championship teams, they understand and they're able to actually rise to those occasions.
100%. And it also goes back to a championship level coaching staff.
Yep.
And that's what coaches assembled here. I mean, you don't even have to go all the way down the list. You just look at Kim Mulkey's tournament runs and Bob Starkey's tournament runs. Everything else takes care of itself. The assistants who have been on those staffs, but Coach Starkey and Coach Mulkey know how to win at an extremely high level. So a lot of the things that they say and the adjustments that they make, it's not just a far-fetched guess. I mean, they've done a lot of really digging into it to try and figure out who our matchups are going to be, what plays we need to run, different things like that. So credit our players, but the coaches deserve their flowers too. I mean, Coach Mulkey, she watches a lot of film. Coach Starkey doesn't stop watching film. I mean, he watched 13 games on Michigan, and he's probably about at that right now on Utah. And
Half the schedule.
it's fun right now that we're still able to watch film and still able to make scouting reports and keep this train rolling.
You talked about reaching the goal of the Sweet 16. Now y'all have done that. I know we had a conversation before the game last night. Well, now it's time to be greedy. Mm-hmm. And, we've heard all the talk, the bad non-conference schedule, they can't win the big game, the South Carolina game. It seems like they're playing with a lot of underdog confidence, and in terms of they know they can do it, but they also know that they're being slept on, they're being disrespected. They got the 3 seed when arguably you could have made an argument for a 1.
Yeah.
What is that playing? How much is that mindset playing into that locker room right now with the confidence that they showed on Sunday and moving forward?
I think, especially after these first 2 wins, you win both games by 20 plus. People say, "Oh, you took care of business. You're supposed to do what you're supposed to do," but we still feel a little bit disrespected, and I think you use that as a motivational factor, but you also don't harp on it too much. The girls know. They know we probably should have been a higher seed. People can say whatever they want about our non-conference schedule. We did what we were supposed to do in non-conference. So you want to use all that outside whiteboard, chalkboard material, rat poison, as Nick Saban likes to say.
Or Lane Kiffin.
If you can put all that and ball it up and use it to motivate you, I think it can be really, really special. And that's, I think, looking forward to this coming weekend, we're the lower seed. Probably will be the lower seed for the 2 games, hopefully 2 games we play. But it starts with Friday night. We'll be ready for Utah. We're going to watch a lot of film on them tomorrow as a team. We're having a big send-off on Wednesday.
At noon?
At noon outside the admin building. And the plan for Utah is beat them, and then whoever we'd be fortunate enough to play on Sunday and try and win that one. And then let's have a little.
Let's have a run.
Let's have a little party at BTR Jet Center on Sunday night with some nets cut down and a trophy getting off that plane.
There you go. So Friday afternoon, time is still TBD, obviously, through the rest of the games tonight.
Yep.
Good luck to y'all this weekend, man. Thank you for coming through again today, man.
Appreciate it. Let's
Time to go on
one more show next week. If we could do that.
Keep this thing rolling.
Yeah,
Hey, if we
of course,
keep
we
it
have to.
rolling, one more show next Monday. We'll make it happen.
Well, then if you keep it going again,
Hopefully you're
It's gonna
missing.
be a
Hopefully you're
video
missing the
call.
Tennessee series because you're in
Yeah.
Dallas.
That's the plan. But let's take care of business this weekend. Starts with Friday night and then or Friday afternoon, and yeah, it's been fun.
Good stuff.
Not ready for it to end yet.
No, I feel you. Neither are we.
Yeah.
Good stuff, dude. We appreciate you coming through,
Yeah.
and we'll see you next week. Let's do
Go on
that.
a
Let's do
little
it.
break.
We'll do that. We'll talk into existence. We'll see you next week.
Little
All right.
extra mini break. Let him get out of here.
We're going to get hibachi.
Ooh, nice.
Joe's always eating after these. He's always leaving for dinner.
He is.
I don't want to eat before.
Yeah.
He
We
is.
off?
I don't blame you. No, we're still on. All right, and we'll be right back after this.